Welcome to the Indie Game Spotlight Stream Recap. This is for our stream in September of 2019. Each month I play games submitted by developers as a way of providing smaller indie devs some free coverage and getting more eyes on interesting or unique games that are out there. I'm sorry about the lack of music for this video. I had an issue with my recording that kind of screwed things up and I had to redo it without the music. But this is our first game, A Glider's Journey. And this is a physics-driven, basically an obstacle course runner, similar to games like Pilot Wings or that infamous Ring section from Superman 64. The glider itself is handled entirely by physics, and as a very weird and interesting point, the harder you make the difficulty, it actually makes the physics have more of a factor. When you play on hard, just a slightest touch can send the glider in a weird direction. When you're playing on the easier settings, it becomes a lot harder. But the weird thing is that even on the easy setting, it can still be hard to maneuver if you're trying to make sudden adjustments and the physics won't let you. But the rules are pretty straightforward. Use all the rings that you fly through to provide you with a boost that will guide you to the end of the obstacle. And each level being its own fanciful take on obstacle design. Unfortunately, while you can't hear, the music also has a nice dreamlike atmosphere to it. While it may not look after I just did that win there, this is a very hard game to play, because of the fact that so much of it is guided by the physics, and the slightest mistake, and you just have to restart the whole level. And these levels can take upwards of 4 to 5 minutes to go through the entire level, and that can be a lot of time lost if you make a mistake. And this is one of the things that we ran into by the fact that there are no checkpoints in A Glider's Journey. So you can get 3/4 of the way through a level, make a mistake, crash into something like you see right there, and you have to start the whole thing over again. And before anyone says it, you do have to hit every ring in order to open up the end. I even got an achievement for trying to cheat the game. And this is a very interesting one. From a moment-to-moment standpoint or core gameplay loop, A Glider's Journey definitely works. But there's not really anything else to it. This is a game that you're going to figure out very early on if you're going to like it. And I'm not sure how many people are going to want to play this almost like Kaizo take on this design. There's only, I think, 6 or 7 levels total in the game, but each one being completely different in terms of obstacle design and environmental detail. And you can see me just spinning for dear life there. But I enjoyed this one, despite the fact that I kind of sucked at it and I couldn't get through all the levels in it. But with that said, let's move on to our next game. And that is The Light Keeps Us Safe. This is an atmospheric, almost like a horror adventure kind of game. The concept is that it is the post-apocalypse, all of humanity has been wiped out except for us, and we are on a mysterious journey to try and turn on a strange machine that may or may not save us. The MO of the game, obviously with the title, is the use of light, and we are armed with, the Swiss Army knife of flashlights. That's the item that you see in the bottom right. The light itself is used, or we get different kinds of light. That in turn will affect the environment and is used for exploration and puzzle solving. There is a light survival aspect of the game, as we have to manage food or hunger/stamina and health. And that is done by gathering random pieces of food and first aid kits, and you can see our resources in the upper right hand corner of the screen. Now, from playing the game, I wasn't sure if each quote-unquote biome is procedurally generated or handmade, but it's built around basically a huge area, a huge amount of real estate, with several points of interest, which are, as you probably could assume, marked by light beams, light sources, things like that. And our objective in each area is to find these kinds of little glowy orbs, which are used as kind of the game's currency for some kind of special resource for that machine. And we're also looking for basically random scrap and miscellaneous parts that are used to upgrade our flashlight weapon or flashlight device here. While there are enemies and traps, The game is built more on non-violent solutions and using stealth to avoid danger. There are plenty of enemy hazards, such as these kinds of turret towers, that you have to kind of get in close and disable them, at least for a short while, and avoiding traps and hazards within buildings and points of interest themselves. The meta goal of each biome is that you want to collect enough scrap, which is then used to upgrade the flashlight, giving it a new functionality, which in turn gets used to unlock the next area. And then how the game works is that with each subsequent area, they're going to introduce new puzzles and obstacles that will rely on the previously acquired light function. So for this area, I got the ability to basically broadcast or send out a authentication light, or something that can disable certain checkpoints. And then lo and behold, when I got to the environment, I had to make use of it. This one was a fairly interesting game. It didn't quite hit things for horror for me, but I really liked the kind of use of lighting in the bleak, apocalyptic atmosphere. And this is one that I wouldn't mind trying to go through and just seeing where it develops. But the one issue that I had with it is that despite the wide open environments and kind of your very basic set of mechanics, it's not really built on emergent behavior or emergent gameplay. The various puzzles all feature very basic elements to them, and there's no real sense of being able to adjust or change things on the fly to give you an advantage or circumvent an obstacle. If there is something in your way, there is a set option or a set way to get past it. And if you don't do that, then you're in trouble. As you can see, I was just ducking under that tripwire there. But very curious game, and I wouldn't mind trying to play through more of it just to see where things go. But I was hoping, again, that we would see more of the lighting impacting things, other than just for basic puzzle solving. But with that said, we're going to switch to our next game, and this one is definitely a complete far cry from this. And that is Snake Royale, a game that I think you can pretty much guess what it's inspired by from the title alone. This was sent to us as a browser-based game you can play for free, and, well, there really isn't too much to discuss here. Taking the idea of Snake and throwing in the idea of an ever-collapsing arena, as a certain popular game has done. The game is definitely played best with multiplayer, but unfortunately nobody else was playing it at the time. There really isn't too much to say about this, but I did like the interesting dynamic that once the field completely closes up, it then becomes a race to keep collecting apples, while your snake is constantly being drained by being outside the safe zone. But again, there isn't too much to talk about with this one. What you see is entirely what you get. But we're going to do our quick Patreon supporter and sponsor shout out now. When we return, the following footage does have music. I did manage to salvage that. But we'll take a look at the rest of the spotlight next. And now for a quick thank you to our current Game Wisdom sponsors and Patreon supporters. And if you'd like to continue the discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. For our next game, this is Nota. And this one is something we want to keep an eye out on. We may do more of it on stream in the future. This is, as you can tell, a 2D roguelike, with the major point is that every pixel in the game is simulated. And what that essentially means is that everything moves and operates with its own consistent physics. So, if I set something on fire and it is on something that's flammable, that fire is going to spread all over the place. And a major element of Nota is kind of the use of liquids and heat and such to kind of control how things move and operate. For instance, if I wanted to protect myself from fire, I could jump into a pool of water. If I want to increase my crit chance, I can jump into a pool of my enemy's own blood. And the entire environment, I think for the most part, is destructible. There are a few unbreakable blocks kind of to segment biomes, but similar to Spelunky, you can just blow up everything on your way to victory. And the challenge of the game is that a lot of things can kill you fast or kill you very slow if you're not careful, such as touching acid blood, jumping into a pool of fire or lava, and not finding water and need to clean it off, and enemies can kill you very quickly with their own attacks. Your own attacks are based on the wands that you see in the upper left hand corner of the screen. And the wand UI at the moment is a little bit on the confusing side. Other than if the wand is infinite and its attack type, I'm not sure what the other stats mean or if they're important or not. And the game itself is just again about that same kind of spelunky, I'm going to shoot something, and then all madness ensues all around you. And people who've been playing the game have already found like a crazy amount of persistent and strange rules involving ARGs, mysteries, final boss, hidden things, things like that. And the game is in early access right now, so it is very possible that what you see may not represent the current version of it. But this is one that I think everyone should be keeping an eye on as it develops through early access. The fact that everything is simulated and gives it that chaotic nature is worthy alone of keeping an eye on it, and the fact that this is going to be a challenging roguelike is just icing on the cake. If they can streamline the UI and at least some of the explanation about how things work, I think this is going to be an amazing game when it is finished. And for right now, there is plenty here if you just want to go around flying around and just watching the craziness of fire, acid, poison, blood, and there's even some nuclear stuff all going around. But with that said, let's move on to our next game and go in a completely different direction. We turn to the twin stick action of Vader. This is a game that's trying to elevate the old school arcade shooter. It is a challenging, as you can see, shoot 'em up with bullets coming at you from all directions. And the game's unique twist to it is that there's a pretty sizable persistent element to the title. As you complete each level, you unlock new abilities, such as that nuke that I just dropped, and the game makes you choose between different options. And as an interesting touch, the choices always are either a safer but not as powerful one for novice players, and a more powerful but harder to use one for expert ones. It's a very great touch on trying to give the player more options, while not explicitly punishing somebody who's not as good at the game. And there's definitely a lot that's going on, and this is one of those games that the screen can get quite distracting in terms of the number of on-screen elements and things just flying at you from every which way. And when you die, you do get a few continues and extra lives, as well as a kind of a very basic RPG level up that you have at the end of every level. But once you run out of that, you're pretty much going to go back to the start and rebuild. From what we could see on stream, each wave is kind of handmade in terms of the boss fights and things along those lines, and it really comes down to how well you can play and adapt to the situation. With that said, there are a few issues I think may hold back the Vader. The big one that I think may be a straw too far, straw that breaks the camel's back, is that there is no online multiplayer. There is only local co-op. And we've been talking about this for a while now, about seeing like an online or evolution of like the Smash TV formula. And I really liked the Vader, but it is one of those games that definitely feels best suited when you have a second person to scream at and the craziness of trying to not die. The other point that was pointed out that the game itself is on the expensive side. I think this was either a $15 or $20 game when we played this on stream, and that may be a little bit much for some people given the basic gameplay loop. But with that said, I do appreciate the fact that this is an elevated take on this kind of design, and one that we normally don't see. And I hope that we get more developers trying to take these older designs and make them or iterate on them for a modern audience. With that said, we're moving on to our next game for something that is completely different from anything else that we've played on stream yet. This is, I hope I don't butcher this too much, Eidolons Netherflame. This is a game that, at the time of the stream, has, I think, an Indiegogo demo, or it's being pitched over there, and the demo's available on Steam. And this one is quite the doozy. It's described as a turn-based take on Dark Souls. So, combining the already complexity of a turn-based strategy game with the do-or-die and high degree of skill of a Dark Souls title. And, well, they certainly got the complexity part down. We played this on stream, and nobody could figure out what was going on in this game. The demo that we got is essentially the tutorial, and I don't know if it goes anything beyond it. And this is definitely a case of not having good onboarding practices. Lots of information on screen, kind of hard to know where I should be focusing my attention on at any one time. And there's definitely complexity here, but I couldn't tell you this is really deep or interesting. And for anyone who's played this one, I'm kind of curious about how do you figure out what's going on or what is even happening. You can kind of make out the UI along the bottom, but there's also UI at the top of the screen. We have the results menu on the upper right, and the game itself just did not really scream playable at the moment. But again, though, this could just be the fact that we couldn't figure out what was going on. And maybe there is a deep and rewarding game for those who figure out its complexities. And that's pretty much all I have to say for this one, unfortunately. If you're looking for something to really sink your teeth into that I don't think there's anything else like it out on the market right now, keep this one on your radar. And with that, we're going to move on to our next game, and probably I think this is the one that won the evening, at least for me. And that is Out of Space. This is a game that I believe is currently in early access, and it's a very interesting take on roguelike, survival, and even co-op based game design. The idea is that we are taking care of these spaceships and space stations, and we have to deal with all the alien filth, as well as keeping our character from running out of energy or succumbing to hunger. Now, there's two things very important to keep in mind. The first one, again, is the fact that this game is in early access, and the second is that it is clearly designed around cooperative gameplay. Now, because we were playing this on the Indie Spotlight stream, we didn't have a chance to get people on for multiplayer, and that's where this game definitely shines. The concept of it is that we perform these tasks in order to gain money. The money is used to buy either batteries that power up the space station, basically giving us more access, or utility or helpful items that can improve our characters and make the living part of the game easier. So for instance, right now I'm growing pumpkins that I use to eat and regain my health. I could, with enough money, buy a microwave, which will let me basically produce higher quality food, thereby restoring more of my hunger meter at a single time. The major point of cleaning these space stations at the moment involves carrying water to basically destroy the alien hives and alien kind of infestation. And then I use my mop to swipe it all up or wipe it all up, dispose of the trash and remains of aliens to get more resources. And as you can probably tell by the footage that you're seeing right now, the gameplay is very much on the deliberate, I wouldn't say clunky, but it's designed to kind of force a lot of tasks to be done repetitively. Get the water, throw it over there, bring it back, repeat, get more money, get more resources, and just do it again and again and again. And the idea, of course, is that if I was playing this multiplayer, we would each be handling different tasks. So while I'm busy dealing with the aliens, a partner could go fill up the water bucket, bring it back over there, and move things along. And we spent a lot of time on stream on this one level, and a lot of that again was simply by the fact that as one person, you really can't do a lot in this game. But with that said, the idea of having a cooperative based game along these lines, and the fact that all the space stations are procedurally generated, gives it a very unique touch compared to other games out there. And we've always been looking for more interesting co-op games to play on the stream. And like I said, this is a game that clearly shines with I think at least 2, maybe 3 other people. With that said, one other unique touch I think kind of puts it even higher, almost knocks it out of the park for me, is the persistent element. When you finish a map, the game will unlock new items that will show up in subsequent plays, as well as give you challenges for playing the game at the higher difficulties. And it's very Binding of Isaac-esque in that regard. And I think that's a great system to not only make it easier to learn at the start, but also provide an incentive to keep playing and changing the game as you go forward. And I really like this one. And again, we could play this multiplayer. I think that will have done a lot more to show this one off. But with that said, we're going to move on to our final game, and probably the weirdest one of our set tonight. And this is Leprechaun Shadow. This is the third game in the Unicorn Dungeon trilogy. A dry humor, crazy adventure game with always having a second game genre or system as kind of an additional layer on top of it. The first Unicorn Dungeon had a roguelike dungeon crawler aspect to it. The second game had a top-down pseudo-stealth. And I'll show you this one's third system in a minute. But as with the previous games, we have a whole lot of dry humor with some very weirdly generic 3D models. And the story of this one involves our brave knight still trying to bring the unicorn back to the kingdom to become the next king. I've completely forgot the story along the way there. But he is now stuck in a detective noir involving a leprechaun killer who is murdering people over rutabagas. I am not kidding, that is the story of this one. And yeah, it gets very weird along those lines.
There's nothing in there for you.
As with the previous games, the main gameplay loop is point-and-click adventuring. There are some other little hidden twists and turns there, but once again, you're going to have to make use of the crazy logic of the world in order to solve the mystery. And from the adventure game side, I like this one more than the second game. There's still a few esoteric puzzles here and there, but the environment is kept very much constrained, or on the shorter side, just so you don't have too many environmental details and things to keep track of. And while that is all well and good, there's one thing that kind of went a bridge too far for me. And that's this game's additional game system. And that occurs after you find the Rutabaga King, who we need to go meet. And unfortunately, to do that, we need to leave the safety of our little home here, and we go out into the field. And guess what awaits us out there? If you guess 8-bit JRPG with tons and tons of random encounters, you would be right. And this kind of broke my mind here. And then you can probably see the realization of horror in my face in the bottom left-hand corner. That this is straight up 8-bit, I think, Dragon Quest style combat, but very slow. The UI requires all key presses. There's no mouse or hotkey shortcuts. And there didn't seem to be an easy way to understand about leveling up or finding more gear. And this becomes a major part of the game. And like I said, this was when I basically threw my hand up, as you can see down there, and just had to raise the white flag. Because I don't have the time to go play a JRPG combat again, let alone one that's on the slower side. And as you're about to see, random encounters occur very frequently. And if you don't believe me about this slow movement, just wait a second for this one. Yeah, that was the moment where it just went too much for me to play this game. I think I was trying to see if I could just like quit the battle or speed things up there. But unfortunately, Leprechaun Shadow is going to be one of those games that I am definitely not going to be beating anytime soon. I like the story and the adventure gameplay work for me, but like I said, I don't have the time to play either a standard or substandard JRPG game. And this kind of forced random encounters and just endless combat and slowing down is what drove me away from the JRPG genre to begin with. So I have no intention of playing this again. And it is a shame too, because I'm sure there are a few of you out there who do like the series. And I hope that if we do get to a fourth game, I don't know how many more they have planned, maybe they'll get to a platformer soon, or I don't know, a dungeon crawler like Darkest Dungeon. But I do want to thank everybody who submitted keys for the Indie Spotlight. You'll find links to their games down below in the description, and if you'd like to submit a game for the next month's Spotlight, please get in touch as we do one each month. But with that said, thanks for watching this video. Come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where is in the art and science of games. And I'm sure there's going to be another battle on screen any second now, but I will leave you here. Have a great night, folks, and see you all next time. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel linked down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.